All right, it's 5 p.m. on August 22nd, 2022. We'll call to order the Committee of the Whole agenda meeting. We'll start right off with appearances. We have Chief Hoganson and Assistant Chief Anderson on the Festival of Sail.
Good evening, everybody. Ken is just, Assistant Chief Anderson, Ken's just going to pass out some of the emails and a letter and some of the comments we've received from some of the people that work alongside of us or live in our community. It's just a sampling of some of the things that we've heard. You can review it later, but certainly relevant to the Festival of Sail. As we all know, the festival was alive in our community from August 4th through the 7th. It has since set sail, for now. But I will say, that was good, I like that. But I know it lived within the Two Harbors Police Department and in our community, and I think certainly with myself and Ken since September 29th of 2021. When then Interim Administrator Pietola gave me the word that the potential was there for tall ships to be coming to our community. So I know that Ken and I, the 300 plus hours working on the festival above and beyond our regular hours leading up to July 31st, and then the extra hours we put in the 8 days of the festival preparing for that, were something that I'm very appreciative to Ken for, because I don't think that I could have done it alone. I know that for sure. We still work through a lot of things, the bills, of course, that'll all roll in. Questions, comments, and our after-action reviews from the festival. And just today, we got a possible request to attend the Governor's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Conference in February for a possible breakout session of rural counties and communities planning for major events. We'll see where that goes. But from the beginning, Ken and I have both said that we wanted to plan to prepare for a safe and successful festival. It was a huge undertaking, I think, for our police department and our community, but through cooperation and collaboration with public safety partners, government, business community, and the public, I think that we were able to do that. I think that it was a huge success for Two Harbors from the public safety side of things. And there's a list, and it's lengthy, but I think it's appropriate to share, of some people or organizations, community stakeholders that we want to say thank you to. Interrupt anytime if you have questions. But the list is significant. But I think it shows the amount of cooperation that was needed to be able to pull this off. We hope we remembered everybody, and if we didn't, we apologize. But some of the partners, the U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, the National Weather Service, Minnesota State Fire Marshal's Office, Minnesota Homeland Security and Emergency Management, Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, Minnesota DNR, and Minnesota State Patrol, along with emergency management staff from Carleton County, St. Louis County, and Lake County. The Lake County GIS person, Amy, was super helpful to a lot of the things we asked to do, so that was great to work with her. Our Lake County Sheriff's Office, the Highway Department. As you may or may not know, the new highway facility up there served as the Emergency Operations Center, and it worked fantastic. And then Lake County Public Health was a big part of this, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But certainly another thank you to Tall Ships America, Steve Such, and Aaron Short from that group, who provided so much insight into a lot of the things, and then drought events to Craig Simborski, Bill Stovern, Pat Mullen, and all of their staff, Voyager Bus Company, Valerie Marasco-Eliason, who served as our Public Information Officer, Canadian National, so the railroad, Lake County Ambulance Service, and then Lakeview Hospital and Clinic. Just working with and networking and being able to have honest conversation was so helpful with those people. Some businesses, and I guess the community stakeholders that we feel is appropriate to point out. And all these businesses, and I guess really our community stepped up because we had contingency plans for active shooters, for weather, evacuations, missing and lost children, people, all sorts of things in our playbook. But the American Legion, the Moose Lodge, Holy Spirit Catholic Church, Bethlehem Lutheran Church, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, First Baptist Church, United Church, the Minnehaha School, Two Harbors High School, Two Harbors Youth Hockey, the Lake County Arena, and the Two Harbors Golf Association for the Golf Course and Curling Club. All of those groups that I just mentioned, we reached out to them to be possible evacuation sites in case it, and all of them stepped up and said, yep, our doors are open, however you need. And really the golf course with their big golf tournament going on, you know, for them to step up and say, yeah, we'll put them where we can, but we got 100 of our own here was super nice. Have to thank, we call it Holiday East at the police department, but Shannon Kittleson and his crew there. I think at one point, local law enforcement had more gas drive-offs than we have in a typical summer. What we didn't know is our cart can only be swept 3 times in a day, so it's quickly swept 3 times, then we had no way to pay for gas. So we had a list of gas drive-offs, so their patience, once we got that fixed, was certainly a good thing. Lake County Historical Society, they stepped up with the lighthouse, just for a place for one of our people to stay. A fantastic place to stay, and very appreciative of those folks. And then really, and I know I'm missing others, but I'd like to specifically thank Judy's Cafe. On Sunday, we didn't have kind of an oversight on our part, any food available, because the catering place that was arranged for, they don't serve food on Sundays. So Judy's Cafe actually stepped up and made breakfast for everyone and donated that. And then Louise's Place provided lunch and dinner those days, so I guess a shout out to them. Everybody who was in the community, or as may have heard, there was a lot of law enforcement in and around the community. And those boots on the ground is, I guess, someone else, those people we'd like to thank as well. From our own Two Harbors Police Department officers, Hermantown Police Department, Cloquet Police Department, Duluth Police Department, East Range Police Department, which is Hoyt Lakes and Aurora, Eveleth Police Department, the University of Minnesota Duluth Police Department, Carleton County Sheriff's Office, Silver Bay Police Department, St. Paul Police Department, Lake County Sheriff's Office, again, the Coast Guard, Customs and Border Patrol, DNR enforcement on the waters. A huge thank you to Jim Gilbert and the Public Works staff for all of their work, to the Lake County Highway Department staff. Just, they were the boots on the ground. Public Works, you know, there was a lot of discussion about traffic and parking planning and all that stuff, and really those folks went above and beyond, pounding in the lath and the signs and making sure they were there, and garbages and their planning work, so big thank you to them. And then I will thank Ken again. He knows as well as I that we were the first ones there and the last ones to leave, really just to, and I don't pat ourselves on the back very often, but I think it's worth it. I think we took care, by what you'll see in those comments, of everybody that was here, and I think that's who we are as a community for the City of Two Harbors. We take care of people. They live here, visit here, work here, we take care of people here. So, thanks to him. I know the sacrifices that he made, personally and professionally, to be there right alongside me. So, I can't say that enough. The planning side of things, as you know, we had traffic plans that went into place. Not only did we have Highway 61 corridor to think about, and we all know what summer looks like here in Two Harbors, but our local streets and avenues. And then really, one of the focuses we had to allow our emergency vehicles, the boaters, to get into the lake that we're all allowed down there still, and then our residents and visitors to travel around, was something that we needed to plan for. In Minnesota Department of Transportation, Lake County Highway, and again our Public Works Department, you know, worked alongside of us, which was great to see. And ironically, and one of those little things that I found interesting, in speaking with MnDOT, and if you were here, you noticed traffic along 7th Avenue was Yeah, but ironically, there was, from their estimates, and they've got all the technology to do it, these weigh-on stations and all this stuff, we actually had more traffic that weekend than we typically did by 500 to 800 cars. In talking with some of those folks, they think they figured out the traffic congestion problem in Two Harbors, and that is the left-hand turns that exist at 9th Street, 8th Street, and 5th Street. So I don't think they'll ever go away, but I think that really helped with the flow of things, with those closures. Parking planning, as you all saw, all of the signs, that went into place. We did have some issues, but certainly our officers and those that came in to assist us, I mean, they all did things the way that we do things here. We knocked on doors. Some people were resistant to it, not moving. Well, here's the alternative. We towed 0 cars. Nobody got towed, which was, when we all thought of this, it was doom and gloom, right? We were gonna fill the public works yard with towed vehicles. They didn't. People, they listened, they cooperated, they asked questions, we answered their questions. It was really good to see. We did, one person, I should say, they did towed, but their vehicle actually broke down, so it just got pulled around to the alley, so it was out of the way. But the parking, it worked. We adapted, we changed as we needed to. We were communicated back and forth. Some businesses had some concerns that the parking planning was affecting businesses. We rectified all of that. Our emergency vehicle routes, our boat routes, our vendor routes, I really think that they all worked. I know Voyager Bus Company, it probably wasn't their first choice for a bus route, but I think in the end that they were happy with what they got to do. They're traveling back and forth. And I do hope that it wasn't too disruptive to those neighborhoods. There was just, that's the route that was best, and that's what we have to work with. Staffing. For us to get the number of outside officers that we brought in, which was the appropriate number to bring in, to coordinate their schedules and to do those planning took a lot of work. It is physically impossible for someone to stand at an intersection and direct traffic for 8, 10, 12 hours. So we developed a rotation where they stayed for an hour and 45 minutes at every location. It kept them moving, it kept them proactive, it kept them engaged. You know, a lot of the officers, they actually commented how nice it was and how friendly people were here. I won't say where they worked, you know, previously, but it was just ironic that people smiled and wave and do all those things. So it's a good reflection of our community once again. We had the logistics side of things to plan for, the communications. There's a communication plan developed for all these outside agencies to talk to one another and to talk in groups and do all of those things. Lake County GIS and Ken, really we provided maps, the rotations, the traffic, the parking, just through briefings. We had to get all that information out there. It went really flawless, I would say. The equipment, there were shared squads, but I know Hermantown Police Department came with their side-by-side. You folks, approving the purchase of ours, we learned so much about it and what a valuable tool that will be for us in the future. It worked just better than I think we had hoped. Lake County donated four-wheelers. Silver Bay Police Department brought their four-wheeler down. It was just really, it took everybody. So thanks to all those agencies again, and you folks. I think some interesting things that did come up, and this is where public health comes in, and there was the announcement, but to work in the unified command is what it's called up there, to make decisions on what's happening. And when we got word of one of the ships and one of their crews having COVID, there was a lot of people who wanted to, run through the streets and like the British are coming, but just wasn't the right thing to do. So we worked through the situation with Festival of Sail people, with Tall Ships of America people, Ken and I directly, and the emergency manager for Lake County. We worked through a plan of getting them off of the break wall, off of the boat, quarantined, all of the things that they needed to do. With public health from Lake County working alongside of us. It worked out. Craig Zamborski and his Festival of Sales staff agreed to send out an email to the ticket holders to try to reach as many people as they could that way. Talking with public health, the state of Minnesota doesn't even do contact tracing anymore, so it wasn't, sound the alarm. And there is that inherent risk that COVID is at a large scale event, just like a concert or anything like that. So we worked through that. Unfortunately, 2 of the law enforcement officers that we had brought up here tested positive for COVID one day. They were not around people, thankfully. They weren't in that time frame and distance for all of that. They just didn't come back the next day. So our plans, we had to adapt and change, but we were able to do that. So that was good. We during the week of the festival, and I can't share details, but we worked through 3 pretty challenging investigations within our department that are still active and ongoing that we really didn't need at that time. So some of the people we had helping us and directly involved, we lost them, but that's what we do, and we serve the community, and those things are still ongoing. Someday, maybe we'll share details, but drones, if anybody saw, there's a lot of drones that would go up in the sky. If you remember, Mr. Zamborski talked about this is a men's event, a Marine event of national security, so there's going to be all these restrictions. So that men's event created like a no-fly zone for that over the boats. But people still launch their drones, and we try to locate them, educate them. I think that the promoter actually hired one of the drone operators to go up. So through some education and all that stuff, I think all of that was taken. It's a separate process to get approved, but we worked through all that. And then, if everybody noticed, one of the vessels stayed a little bit longer on the break wall. One of them was moved off. That vessel was moved off of the break wall. It's a foreign flagged vessel, so it's not a U.S. vessel, so that created some other issues. They were waiting for parts, and then they didn't want to travel to their next destination right away, so they really didn't have permission to do that. So there had to be some documents drafted. Ken and I, along with Tall Ships, people Steve Such, who was great to work with from Tall Ships, we met with the captain and the Festival of Sail people. And Angel from Trinidad was fantastic to work with. He understood it, and they got moved over by the NG on that dock. That's the cooperation from Canadian National. We worked through all that with Patty, I think, on a Sunday to figure out ownership and all of that stuff and who can do it. And CN said, we won't raise an issue, go ahead and put them there. But we monitored them through different surveillance means. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension that brought in some cameras that allowed us live feeds to everything. So we could monitor them. We established some rules with Angel. And he knew that I was his direct contact. If he needed something, and I said, and I will contact you if I need something from you. And I jokingly said, so I'll see you later tonight, Angel, because they like to partake in a lot of what we had to offer here in town. But they're fabulous, and they actually left early, so they must have got their parts, and then they were off to, I think, Marquette. So that all went good. I think it's appropriate to touch on some lessons learned. The Emergency Operations Center worked great. Being away from this area was helpful. It allowed us to feed everyone, so that worked great. Unified Command, like I said, functioned as it should. We touched on our staffing number. That was appropriate and accurate. The number that I would do again. There are some ways to change the staffing number. In conversations with Lake County, we think that we could utilize some of their staff in the future if that comes. They did not provide anyone back to the festival itself, but we do think that they could this time, so there would be a cost savings at some point there. I think we were told that they would like to come back. I shared this with Councilor Glauser in 2025. We have to do all this. It wasn't, it went better than I thought it was going to. But it was funny because I told the promoter, I said, well, you can do it in 2028. And he looked at me and I said, well, I
You'll be
anticipate being
retired.
gone, so. But anyways, if they do, we think that there needs to be some requirements for the permit. Some medical tents became an issue where the Lake County Ambulance Service, there were none. Lake County Ambulance Service really stepped up and provided Band-Aids and all of those things to people, so they did a fantastic job. Julia and Randy from the ambulance, we can't thank them and their staff enough for that. We do a lot of the things the same, certainly some things different. We would ask that we are given more time to plan and prepare. 8 months, 8 plus 8 to 9 months is certainly something that's not appropriate. But I know that all of us at the Tuarvers Police Department, and most of us in this room, and I'll speak for Ken as well, are smarter and better prepared for future events or other large-scale events. We were mindful of the dollars going out to the city, and I just thought I would share that we did release some officers as appropriate when it was like, all right, we can cut you, which is 80 or more hours of, doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I think it is. It's a lot. So, Ken, like I said, we just passed out some emails and comments that we received. We've had a lot of positive comments, both to Ken and myself, to our officers. I don't know if anybody else is hearing them, but the business community. I think ironically, it was a huge success, the tall ships here in Two Harbors, the public safety side of things. It's something our city leaders, our community, and everyone who loves our town can be proud of. It was doom and gloom in the beginning. Traffic was going to be backed up to Duluth. You weren't going to be able to get here. Certainly, I don't know the business side of things, and I think that some of them would have done better. I know several of them, it was a wash. It was different people that they served. But I think we know now for next time, if there is a next time, whatever it would be. So I guess Ken and I would stand for questions and try to answer them the best we can.
Go ahead, Robin.
Well, first of all, I can't thank you and your team enough. I happened to be standing on the corner of First Avenue and 4th Street and had a lovely conversation with one of the officers from Hermantown who stopped his car, came over and talked to me. Of course, we offered him water because nobody was buying water, but amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and it was wonderful to listen to him. It was wonderful to listen to the people that were walking past and telling us what a great time they were having. And I know everybody felt like, okay, we were probably overstaffed, but as far as officers on the street, because but you did a great job. And I can't thank you enough for making sure that our community was safe. I had a great conversation with Greg Gruber, the CEO of Lakeview. They too planned for the worst and got the best, and had a lot of people standing around, not because nothing happened. And thank God nothing happened. And it was a pleasure to be able to host this event. I would strongly suggest we don't do it in 2025 because that's when they're supposed to tear up 7th Avenue, so that probably would be a whole new nightmare, Rick. But I really want to thank not just your team, but all of the teams that were out there that worked so hard to make this event a success. And I know there are hundreds of people that worked on this, so just thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And if I could just comment, planning and preparing for the worst and having nothing happen, that is a success.
Bonus.
That's the best result that you
Yep,
can
that was
have.
bonus. Even Greg said that to me when I was talking to him. He said he was up in Grand Marais and was coming back to Two Harbors, and they said, well, there's no reason to hurry because we're really okay. And I thought, well, isn't that a great thing to hear? So just kudos to everybody. The running joke that my friends and I had was that there were so many police officers or law enforcement officers that even if you wanted to do a crime, you would be arrested before you got to do it.
And I'll just comment to that as well, because I had one of my friends actually text me and say he felt like he was in Smokey and the Bandit. Anything else? Otherwise, thank you for everything.
Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. I want to thank you guys personally. Thank you, both of you. Outstanding, amazing. I unfortunately was out of town for the entire weekend with a glitch. But I want to say thank you, and I do think maybe 2025 is not the year to do it, but I would love to see him in 24 or 26. And you guys planned so well, and you did so many things, and you thought outside of so many boxes. And I want to thank you for that, and I think we can totally pull this off. And I would like to see it happen recurringly. Maybe it's your nightmare. You may be going out, but now that we know we've done it, and we've been through it, I think we knocked it out of the park, and thank you so much for everything that you did and all your planning. Outstanding.
Go ahead, Counselor Erickson.
Thanks to, I think what I learned is knowledge is power. I take to heart the comments, Rick, that you made, and I'm sure echoed by our Assistant Chief. If we had had more time, if we had had a little bit more, I mean, it came quickly. It was, and even during the process, I think we were all a little bit flustered and frustrated that the right people weren't getting the information. And I think that is a great lesson learned for all of us in what good planning in advance of can make a lot less worry in the anxiety levels that maybe many of us felt about it. And I will keep Switzerland on my thoughts of a future, but I think this is a bigger discussion for the city on how we think about events and other things in our community, and when we need that law enforcement partnership, when we need permitting and event partnerships so that we have a better understanding of how those things work. I mean, events aren't new to Two Harbors. We've had many events, and I think many of them have run really well, but this at a high level, you know, and understanding that expectation. There was a lot of expectation from the vendor that we do a lot of things, and that I think is more correlated to the size of our community versus the size of other communities who do something similar to this, who just have more resources. And so, again, I think it becomes an investment question, a partnership, but the processes you guys went through and the management skills that you had through this entire thing was what kept the city side of it so well run. And I just want to say I appreciated every time you came to the council. I appreciated every time you prepared documents to share with us as councilors and for our city administration. I think you were kind of the hub that kind of kept all of the different pieces running. So I just really appreciate that, and I look forward to us really learning from this, not just for this event, but how we can run events and work in partnership with others to make sure these are well. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I guess I'll just finish off by saying thanks. You guys did awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Call if you have other questions.
All right, we'll move on to administrator updates. Attorney updates.
I just have some things that we'll talk about as we get to them in the regular meeting.
Okay. City clerk and HR updates.
Sorry, I got a lot.
That's fine.
Consent agenda item number 7, declaring second reading of the ordinance amending the city code, section 2.40, regarding boards, commissions, and committees. I just wanted to remind everyone that we made the change that was discussed at the last regular meeting that clarifies that committees are made up of all council members and not subject to the same membership requirements found in section 240, so that change was made. That's highlighted in the information that was shared in your packet. Also wanted to point out that the language, that we added some language as a staff recommendation in subdivision 1 that provides some clarification as to the term good cause when used for the purposes of removing a board or commission member. And that's something you can consider when you consider the ordinance.
Which number was that, the good cause?
It's under consent agenda item number 7.
Still number 7.
It's under 2.40. If you look at the attachment to that cover sheet, it's included there. I have a copy of that if you need one. I can share it with you between meetings. Consent agenda item number 10, I'm asking that the council schedule a special meeting for the purpose of approving license renewals for alcohol sales. Hopefully we can get a quorum for this purpose. The next council meeting isn't until September 12th, which doesn't allow much time to get those licenses renewed. So I'll be looking for sometimes, I'm looking at maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of next week. Just like a 4:30 quick meeting, just to get those approved. I just need 4 of you. So we'll talk about that. New business number 2 is clarifying the requirement to conduct a primary election for the special election to be held for the purpose of electing a mayor. So in February of 2012, the City Council adopted a resolution establishing a primary election for 2012. And a copy of that resolution has been provided at your desks. The second paragraph of that resolution states that it basically is to provide municipal primary elections held in 2012. But there's a state statute that also provides that when a resolution or ordinance establishing a primary is adopted, it is effective for all ensuing municipal elections or until it's revoked. So there's some question because the resolution was specific, but yet there's this language, the statute language. So what I'd like the council to do is to consider how we should handle primary elections moving forward. You basically got a couple options there. We could continue holding primary elections when there are 3 or more candidates for any one office. We could no longer hold primary elections when there are, when there's more than 3, just have regular elections. Or we could waive the primary election for the special municipal election because we've determined that the council can't hold the mayoral special election in conjunction with the November election due to the fact that there's a requirement in statute that requires I can't think of the word, but when you're help me, Tim. when you advertise,
For filing.
yes, your filing period has to be between 89 and 84 days ahead. We've only got 76 days ahead of this election, so we wouldn't meet that requirement. Even though you can hold a special election 76 days, I think that probably more than likely only pertains to when there's a question on the ballot. So it doesn't work for us to hold this in November. So what we need to decide is, do we want to hold a primary or not? If we hold a primary, then the primary would be February 14th. If we didn't, we could hold the election on February 14th. If we held a primary on February 14th, the election wouldn't then be until April 11th for the mayor. So to me, it makes sense that we at least skip the primary for the mayoral one, waive that. But it's up to you guys, it's totally your call. It's just that I wanted to point out what kind of a timeline we're looking at.
And that is unless we get at least 3 people that
Yes.
would be running, then we would have to hold a primary.
Unless you waive it,
Unless we waive it.
or unless you do not have, unless you say right now that you're no longer gonna hold primaries. You've got 3 options. You can say, we don't need to hold primaries anymore. Or we can say, we do need to hold primaries and we're gonna always hold primaries. Or you can say, we're gonna continue to hold primaries, we're just not doing it for this election. So, did I explain that right?
100% correct.
Okay, so that's what we need to consider. That's what I've got under the agenda. Kathy, do you have a question?
Does that decision need to be made tonight, now that we know we have more time to make, this is.
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't think so, do you?
No, and we have that 76-day notice, the 80-some day
Yes.
filings. We have to
Yes.
comply with that, so you have a little bit of time to make that decision.
Okay,
Right,
so potentially number 2, we could table,
yes,
have a discussion, just, I'm understanding it now,
Yeah.
thank you for the explanation. I
yeah,
think, sometimes I need processing time.
Right.
So,
right.
um,
I mean, to go on further, I was going to say that, there's the option that we're gonna save time and money, there's things to consider when you're looking at these, but there are reasons for general, or for primary elections too. It narrows that field down, provides you with a better look at two candidates as opposed to a field of many. I mean, there are reasons for that, and, there's good points and bad points, I guess you would say, or, to every side, there's things to consider and look at. So certainly doesn't have to be at this time, it's just, we put it up there just so that you can. And also, it's not been typical that we've had primary elections. We just haven't had to have many because typically we don't have more than two candidates in for any field. Any other questions on that? Okay, a couple other things. We wanted to add new business 11, which is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of a $14,493,919 general obligation revenue note series 2022 and providing for its payment. And then we also wanted to add communications number 3, an email communication that was received by counselors from Uriah Hefter, 404 3rd Avenue, inquiring about the council approving a license for the other place to sell liquor and wine during a concert, liquor, beer, and wine during a concert that was previously scheduled for August 20th. Also, we wanted to add to communications an email from Chris Swanson to the council expressing appreciation for all the work they were able to accomplish together. And I think that's all I have.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Does new business number 3, if we don't know for sure, is this just calling for the election, you don't need the date? Because if we decide a primary, not primary, that's going to change the date.
If you were going to table number 2, I would also table number 3.
And just for clarification, new business number 11 is this packet here.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you.
Yes.
Is that all you have for clerk updates, Ms. Starr? Thank you. Finance director updates.
Thank you, Council President. I have on the agenda tonight, consent agenda item number 4, which is approving the first and second quarter financial statements for the city of Two Harbors. I did put a memo for each quarter in there, and I just wondered if everybody had an opportunity to look at it, or if you have any questions regarding the financial statements. We did have a discussion at finance today at 4, and just I'll try to start out my initial report going forward just saying that the city is okay. We are in stable condition coming out of second quarter. There was, most of the funds are, on target with their revenues for the enterprise, the water, sewer, gas, electric. All the expenditures mostly were under budget at this point. I don't see, typically we will take a look for budget amendments. I don't see anything changing as far as the final dollar amount, but we usually maybe move things between funds to even that out if like the police department isn't doing as well as public safety. But so that may be changes that we look for in the future, but I can't say that at this point coming out of second quarter. But if I'm open to any questions, if you guys have any after looking at that.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that we did have a brief discussion. Our systems, our revenues don't always match when we do our expenditures, so it's hard to say where we are completely fiscally because we get our levy money and our fee money in a different way. But I think from a budget standpoint, we feel very confident right now that we're within our margin of error for some of the unexpected things that have come up since the beginning of the year. And I think we feel good. And we're embarking on our budget process coming up. And so with that, that helps us kind of ground ourselves into where we are going as far as what next year looks like and in comparison to this year. So, and I just want to thank Miranda and her team for all the great work that they've done. This has been a lot in the midst of everything else going forward. But I think as a finance committee, we were appreciative of all the information that was shared.
Thank you.
So if there's no questions regarding that, Patty did mention new business item number 11. I did receive the resolution today from our bond attorneys, Freiberger, for finalizing the bond for the wastewater treatment plant project. So very excited about this, so wanted to get this in because we have been with utilizing the reserves, paying for all of those really big pay applications, you know, for the wastewater treatment plant project. So we can start getting reimbursed from that, so that's very exciting. So that's what this resolution is for. And I think that's all I had, if anybody has any questions.
Any other questions? No? All right, I think we're good. Thanks, Miranda. And then next is the proposal for the property adjacent to the wastewater, or water and wastewater treatment facilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can take this one. I know Luke is here as well, if he needs to provide any information. In your packet is a letter that we have provided. It was originally intended to go to Utilities Committee last Wednesday, but the Utilities Committee was not able to meet due to lack of quorum. So we brought it forward to tonight's meeting to have a discussion on it. Most of you are probably aware that the city had acquired the property between the water plant and the wastewater plant. It's parcel number 237600 06600 is the parcel that we're talking about. And there's a map of that in the letter that's attached. So the city had acquired this property several months ago, but had a revisionary interest, whereby it could revert back to the previous owner if certain conditions weren't met. We had put together a proposal for starting to do the investigatory work necessary to develop that parcel back in April, but the committees weren't comfortable bringing that proposal forward to the council at that time because of the revisionary interest. Well, time has marched on, of course, and now we're getting to the point where if we want to do that field work to get the data collection done in order to keep design on track for this winter, we need to do that field work. We're running out of time. The field work needs to be done before the snow covers the site. And that's essentially what this updated letter is for, is bring this item back to your attention, identifies the 5 tasks that we would want to do yet this fall in order to gather the data we would need to do the design. Keep in mind the wastewater plant is already under construction, and this parcel, the intent is to use it to kind of tie the 2 plants together, to have a road in there that can serve for access and delivery to both the plants. To incorporate that road would mean we'd realign the trail and get that closer to the lake shore, and get it out of the way of the trucks that would need to be in and out of the site for the deliveries to the plants. Construction of new parking lots, and general new stormwater management to offset all of the new improvements that we'd be making. So there's a lot to figure out and plan. The intent would be that we're working on design for the water treatment plant right now, and if everything comes together, we would bid the work for this parcel with the construction contract for the water treatment plant, thereby being able to use the PFA funding and all the other funding sources that have been lined up for the water plant. So it would complement the existing wastewater treatment facility contract and also be part of the water treatment plant contract. So the funding would come from both of those sources. So what we've got is a letter that's presented for your consideration. The first 5 tasks that we would need to do is survey, geotechnical investigation, which consists of soil borings, phase 1 environmental analysis to identify if there's any concerns out there on site from an environmental perspective, wetland delineations to identify if there are any wetlands on the site, and if so, to get the boundaries of them identified and certified so that we know whether or not we're going to impact them with our improvements. And then to do cultural resources and archaeological survey, which is a requirement when using federal funding, which funding through the PFA does have comes from a federal source. So that work is required in order to utilize that funding. Those 5 tasks are summarized in table 1 of the letter on page 4. Total $63,100. And the intent would be, if we got authorization to do that, we would try and get all of those activities wrapped up by around October 15th. So we've been talking to the geotechnical firm saying, be ready. If we get authorization, we need to get out there and drill the borings and have our surveyor on standby so everybody's ready to go if we have authorization to do that. Table 2 in the letter shows then the following tasks that would be needed for the actual design of the work. So we would not be seeking authorization for that tonight. That authorization would probably come towards the end of October or maybe the first meeting in November. But we wanted to show it when we met with the Utilities Committee, the meeting prior to last week, so like 3 weeks ago. They'd indicated they wanted to see the overall total scope of work that we'd be undertaking so that as council considered authorizing these first 5 tasks for the field work, they knew what part of the larger scope that would be. So those tasks are included in Table 2. It basically includes all the design for the roadways, the trails, the parking lots, adjustments to the wastewater treatment facility design to take advantage of the new improvements we'd be able to make. And that total work would be about just under $300,000. But again, that's not being requested for tonight. It's just more information so that as you consider the decision on the item in Table 1, you know how it fits in with the big picture of what will be coming later this fall. Then obviously we'd get into construction once we actually have bids in hand and we have a schedule and scope for the actual construction work. So Table 4 in the letter is just a breakdown of the same costs that are in Table 1 and 2, just showing how we divide them up between water and wastewater. And right now it's just a projection. It's still, especially tasks 6 and 7 are subject to some refinement yet. But so that in a nutshell is the proposal that's before you tonight, primarily just because of the time considerations. We didn't want to wait till the next council meeting. We'd lose 3 more weeks, and at this point time is of the essence if we do want to get this field work done yet this year.
Go ahead.
Joe, can you just clarify, this is all within the scope of the big ticket wastewater treatment plant budget, so we're not asking to find more money, this is within our existing available funds? Uh-oh.
Well, no, I mean, I think that there's contingency money, this would fall under that, because this is an add-on, or,
For this, the amount for tasks 1 through 5.
oh, that is in, I thought you were talking about the.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about all of it.
All of it, once we actually get the
Yep.
design and actually build it all?
Yep,
That I do not know the answer to.
okay.
I know Brian's been working more on the overall project funding.
I can help out with that.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, all the funding that we are getting for the grants and for the loans, the wastewater treatment facility, this falls under it, and also the water treatment plant, it falls under that. So we would have to probably come up with this out of reserves to begin with, but it would be reimbursable through the loans and the grants on the back end of it. So it is fundable through both projects. One thing that I want to refresh your memory on is the water treatment plant. We've already paid for all of that design, and we're already sitting on millions of dollars of grants with grants. So by waiting on this, we keep pushing this project down the road, which alone is going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars through inflation. So it's ready to go. The water plant's ready to be bid. The monies for the water treatment plant, the WIF money and the loan money would all go towards it and take care of it.
So tonight, the request is for us to approve $63,100 of work that needs to get done ASAP. Then you're gonna come back to us and say, if we wanna move forward and all those things give us the green light, you're gonna propose a round 2 of design costs, and then there'll be the construction costs that would follow that up after the design.
Correct.
And during all that time, Miranda will tell us how all the different pots of money are gonna pay for it. Is that?
Right, I need to look at like the design costs and stuff like that. The 63-1, that does fall within the scope, but
Got it.
yeah, just further investigation of the other portion.
Thanks.
Another notable thing is that even to build our wall, or our fencing and everything, we have to do a certain amount of these items already. So, but
And first of all, I want to apologize to the council. I was on vacation and I did not realize that we had a time-sensitive issue that needed to be discussed on Wednesday, so I want to thank Luke and Joe for bringing this to, and allowing, and to Ben for allowing us to bring it here. We've discussed this, we've talked about it. When we talked about it at our last utilities meeting, we didn't really have a lot of heartburn over the $63,000, but it was the rest of the money. So that's why we asked Joe to get us totals so that everybody would be aware of what the cost would be towards the end. But as Luke said, we've already got, the design for the water plant. We're already working on the wastewater plant. In order to do our fencing around the wastewater plant, we need to do this amount of work to finish that project. And correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe Miranda can help me with this one, but the way I understood it at our last meeting was that it kind of becomes a half and half thing. Half goes to water, half goes to sewer.
Yep.
Or sanitary or wastewater. So I guess that's, if that helps at all, Kathy. And Ben and I were both willing to move forward. We just wanted to make sure that we had, a concise number to bring to the council before you voted on it. So I hope that helps.
Go ahead, Miles.
Does the land swap have any effect on any of this? I mean, I haven't heard anything about the possible land swap.
Well, I believe the revisionary interest is still in play, correct? It's not been
I'm
resolved.
gonna talk about that, I'll talk about it now. Regardless of the funding and the cost of the city, you need to remember this, that land that was given to the city was given with the condition that if the person who owns or potentially buys that other Lighthouse Point parcel does not get a favorable zoning determination, whether it be a rezone or a conditional use permit, they have the right to take the property back. It's been said, why would you do this? Why would you obtain ownership of the property with that type of a reversionary interest? And the answer is simple. We weren't given an option. It was take it or leave it. We will give it to you, but we are going to retain the reversionary interest. It was non-negotiable, so it's there, and it stays there until whatever happens on that point is resolved. So when you spend money on that property, do so knowing that I'm telling you that that could be taken back in the future, and all those investments are for now.
And we did also have discussion in the Utilities Committee about that this $63,000, some of the work has to be done in order for us to put our fence in on the other side, which is all, will be on our parcel and our property, but because we're going over that land, we'd have to do some of this work. The other thing though too is the $63,100 is essentially somewhat of a gamble because we need, it might be thrown away at some point someday, but not the entire amount of it because we have to go over that land to put our fencing up for our wastewater treatment plant as well.
Part of the other discussion, Mr. President, I mean, is the $63,000, the cost of the investment now to do the field work, if we don't do it and you lose a year in the construction schedule, just the construction inflation cost on the size of the project could wind up, being, you might wind up paying $100,000 or $150,000 more for the construction.
Correct.
So it is a calculated gamble.
And that's how we came to our determination as well. Derek, did you have something to add?
Yeah, question, clarification for the attorney. You said that if they didn't get a positive response on rezoning, which I understood, but then you also said conditional use permit. Was that another caveat in there that if they stayed with the existing zoning and get a conditional use permit, which is required for the current zoning, that we would end up with that property, or would they still in?
Wouldn't matter. The city could rezone that parcel, the city could issue a conditional use permit under the current zoning, doesn't matter. Right?
So if they issue a conditional use permit, there isn't rezoning.
Right.
Does it revert to the existing owner?
Right. Does what revert to the existing owner?
Does the property that we're discussing, 237600, 06600, does that revert to the owner? Because the agreement with them is that if they got suitable rezoning, they would donate that property to the city.
Right.
but if it's a conditional use permit, it isn't a rezoning.
That would satisfy the agreement as well.
Okay, thank you.
Because that's existing zoning is a conditional use permit only. The city has the option of either giving them a CUP or rezoning it to accommodate their request. Either one would satisfy the agreement. They would issue a deed saying, we relinquish our reverter interest and now there's no possibility that it goes.
Go ahead, Counselor.
So just so I have this right, Utilities has talked about this in the past.
Several times.
You are recommending from Utilities to this forward. Thank you.
Yes, we do.
Derek?
Yeah, one comment, the Trees and Trails Committee did meet on this, and they recommended going ahead with tasks 1 through 5. There was some discussion, however, about a private road as opposed to a public road through this property, which would allow for additional use of this property for other uses.
Yeah, and there's certainly time to discuss the preliminary layout and the right way to develop it once the data's in and in the design process.
Luke, go
Yeah,
ahead.
one thing that I did want to remind you guys about is the importance of why this is in here. I've been lobbying for this. If you guys recall, it was for sale for a long time.
Can you come up to the podium real quick, Luke? Sorry.
Sure, I'm sorry. This land has been for sale for a long time, as you guys are all aware, and I brought this purchase to the utility committee in 2018, and I had asked to possibly purchase it from the owner and split it between the water and wastewater treatment plant with this design in mind. The reason that it is so important is because we're switching from a cake biosolid to a liquid biosolid, which is going to end up in over 100 semi-tanker loads, give or take. It's going to depend on, don't quote me on that number, but it's a very significant amount of semi-tanker loads that are going to be hauled out of there, heavy in the spring, heavy in the fall, versus now we're using a tandem dump truck. This access gets us off of Lighthouse Point Road. It's a huge safety issue. So my recommendation is, even if it were to revert back to the owner, let's purchase it from them. The safety issues alone and the trail access issues and all of that just make so much more sense, let alone operator access, semi-truck deliveries just for pumps and chemicals and suppliers and things like that. It gets us off of Lighthouse Point Road. That's the whole point and the idea of the load out in there, the loop that's in there. And that's why we're pushing it so hard. So.
All right. Any questions for Luke Boys?
No, that's it. I think we were interested in buying it, and I think they might have been a hefty price tag on it. I don't recall how much they wanted it for, and that's probably the reason. I'm guessing that if we haven't purchased it yet, that would be the reasoning behind it. But that's just what I asked. I wasn't sure what was going on with that property. I haven't heard anything about it lately. I know conditional use permits sometimes have to meet certain requirements, so there's not a guarantee. I know the city can rezone it, so I mean we're safe, I guess, in that aspect. But yeah, I was just wondering what was going on because I wasn't sure if it was ours or theirs, and it's ours as of now.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, thanks, Luke. And Joe, did you have extra updates?
I do.
Okay.
You want to wait till 6?
Yeah, I think I'll wait till 6, if that's fine with you. All right, are there any other agenda questions or additions? Go ahead, Derek.
I would like item number 7 removed from the consent agenda, because I cannot support that.
So that would be, you would like it to go under new business number 12? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
May I ask why, Derek? I was just curious why.
Because at the last meeting, Councilor Erickson indicated that there was explicit explanation on commission membership. That was her quote that was provided by the city attorney. I reviewed all the League of Minnesota I Googled committee and reviewed everything on League of Minnesota Cities website, and there wasn't anything regarding committee membership from League of Minnesota Cities or any restrictions.
Was that with the language that we were having cleared up, or I guess I'm still confused.
Go ahead, Counselor Harrison.
I'll just clarify that it's not committees, it's commissions, so there's a difference between committee and commission. We're talking about commissions, which are the public-facing, public participation pieces that we wanted to talk through. I think getting that recommendation, having the discussion we had at Public Affairs, we wanted to make sure that as many public, members of the public could be a part of our commissions. I certainly understand your difference of opinion on how you feel about those items, but I think Public Affairs has not, we haven't met and we haven't changed our recommendation at this point to move forward. So I'll pause, and I think Councilor Blanchard wanted to respond.
Well, and as I was reading through the highlighted information that was in our packets, it was clearly defined as committees were appointed of councilors by the president of the city council, and commissions were for public. And that was what you had asked for at the last meeting, to have that clarified, and I believe that was clarified.
Yes, I agree. However, the premise that the Public Affairs Committee used that stipulated that no councilors could be on the city commissions was what I would ask that the public, that's...
No, there are councilors on all of the commissions.
Right, I agree. My perspective is there should be council representatives on every commission.
Correct.
But I don't think it should preclude council membership as a citizen member on commissions.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn that meeting. All those in favor, or I need a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Committee of the whole meeting's adjourned. Now we'll roll right into